of the Senate, good morning and welcome to all the students who are here with us this morning. Madam President, good morning. I stand here to give you a report on the COVID-19 virus, and I'm going to give you an updated report as much as possible because I know things are changing very rapidly in the world of coronavirus today. As of March 11, 2020, WHO declared the worldwide outbreak of the new coronavirus a pandemic, with more than 118,702 confirmed cases of COVID-19 globally and 4,291 deaths in 114 countries. However, according to Johns Hopkins University, there is some hope, and I believe this is good news. There is light at the end of the tunnel we are hearing, because we are hearing of the discovery of a possible vaccine. According to Johns Hopkins University, more than 66,000 people have recovered from the illness around the world. So this gives us hope, Madam President. There have been confirmation of COVID-19 cases in several countries of the Caribbean region, including, and as of yesterday, we had none in the OACS, but this includes 5 in the Dominican Republic, 2 in St. Martin, 1 in St. Barth, 5 in French Guiana, 3 in Martinique, 1 that we know of in Jamaica. I believe now I'm hearing it's 2, 1 in St. Vincent, and we've heard of 1 death in Guyana so far. The Department of Health and Wellness met with officials on March 2nd from the Ministry of Education to sensitize them on COVID-19 and provide guidance on measures for preparedness and management of COVID-19 in schools across the island. On the 5th of March, sensitization sessions were held with the principals of schools across the island, primary schools in the morning and secondary schools in the afternoon. Again, guidance was offered to the principals on the measures to be established at the institutions in preparation for in-country transmission of COVID-19 and concerns about the virus, how to address these. Being cognizant that the COVID-19 situation requires a national response, the Department of Health and Wellness continues to engage both the public and private sector. Through a public-private partnership, a handing over ceremony was held on March the 3rd, where over 205 gallons of hand sanitizers were handed over to the Ministry of Education for distribution to schools island-wide. So students who are here today, you can look out for that and make sure you sanitize your hands at all times whenever possible. Surveillance at ports of entry continue to be assessed for strengthening. On March 6th, the Honorable Prime Minister Alan Chastanet, Chief Medical Officer, and Dr. Belma George attended a meeting in Miami to finalize the new regional protocols for the cruise ships. As you know, we have had cause to turn away a few cruise ships. Whenever we believe that they pose a danger to our people, we do not allow them to come on shore. The new protocol highlights the roles and responsibilities of the cruise line international organization, countries, as well as the cruise vessels, is expected to create a standardized approach to dealing with cruise vessels. To ensure that these and other protocols are enforced, the ports of entry, both sea and air, will be receiving additional public health staff. With the global increase in transmission and recent upgrade of the Caribbean's risk assessment by the Caribbean Public Health Agency, CARPA, we went from low to moderate and now to high. The Department of Health and Wellness continues to strengthen preparation for in-country transmission and management, as well as building diagnostic capacity for testing for COVID-19. The equipment to facilitate COVID-19 testing arrived in St. Lucia on March 10th, and the reagents are scheduled to arrive on March 12th. Training for lab staff is scheduled for March 16th, and in-country testing to commence on March 23rd, 2020. For the week of March 9th, the Department of Health and Wellness has responded to a number of incidences with cruise ship arrivals, and we are continuing our strict surveillance at all of our health facilities with extensive focus on our airports and seaports. Let me take this opportunity, Madam President, to encourage everyone to tighten their hygiene practices at home, at work, at school, and wherever we may find ourselves, so that we do not transmit even the common flu.
Honorable Minister in the Ministry for Tourism, Information, Broadcasting, Culture and Creative Industries, responsible for culture and creative industries.
Thank you very much, Madam President. No, it's okay, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah. Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, students, teachers, and of course, media. Last month, our country observed its 41st anniversary of independence under the theme, "Now is the time, let's do this together." And what a time it was. The independence theme song, 758 Magic, by our own brand ambassador, Teddyson John, is captivating, invigorating, and will continue for years to come. St. Lucians from all walks of life participated in the celebrations, and if there was one event that captured the essence of where we are as an independent nation, it was the Independence Civilian Parade. That's the Best of St. Lucia parade. Over 55 contingents from across St. Lucia participated in the event. This parade required that communities come together to discern and portray what is unique and authentic to them. The process allowed for our communities and people to be engaged in a spirit of togetherness. Citizens on all sides of the political divide placed their differences aside and worked collectively to present their communities to the nation. We witnessed inspiring presentations and we saw great results. The best portrayal by government ministries, the best portrayal within the constituencies, the most inspiring contingents, the most original and creative designs, the best presentations on the themes, the best convoy, Lucian Pride Award, People's Choice Award, Best National Award. All of these were captured within the essence of the celebrations. This is the essence of our new St. Lucia, where citizens are empowered and encouraged to take ownership and responsibility for their destiny. Madam President, I really want to say thank you and your team for your capable delivery this year for our celebrations. Some of the other agencies that work with you, the Ministry of Tourism, the Ministry of Equity, our local government councils, Events St. Lucia, the Cultural Development Foundation, some of our schools, the National Youth Council, the business community, all of these agencies came together to ensure that we delivered for our people. And so we commend all of them in their effort to deliver the program. The general atmosphere was one of fun, peace, and tranquility, and we were quite happy with what prevailed at the end of the day. Indeed, the celebrations inspired confidence and pride in all of us. I must also make special mention of the contingent of British soldiers from St. Lucia, British soldiers born in St. Lucia, who took the time to be here with us for the celebrations. And we thank, of course, the Office of the British High Commission for the facilitation. As we continue with our programming for the year, Madam President, it is important that we note, and we heard from the Minister for Health, that the coronavirus is at the fore of our planning. It is indeed a serious matter for us, and not only us, but the world. Our summer festival remains scheduled, and we are closely working with the Ministry of Health to continue to monitor and ensure that the health and well-being of our citizens are not compromised in any way as we attempt to deliver on our mandate. As Minister for Culture, I will continue, like my colleague minister, to urge all citizens to continue to adhere to basic hygiene practices and continue to remain tuned in to the Ministry of Health for guidance through this testing time. I thank you, Madam President.
Honorable Minister for Home Affairs, Justice and National Security.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I want to welcome the students of the Corbett Secondary School and the teachers for taking time off to come to the Senate today. As the President said, I do hope that when you leave here, you'd have learned something as to what happens in the Senate. Madam President, I would like to thank the Parliament of St. Lucia for allowing the Honorable Ernest Hilaire and myself to attend the Cybercrime Security Conference, which was held in London from the 24th to 27th of February 2020. I would like to crave your indulgence, Madam Speaker, Madam President, so that I can speak a little about cybercrime for the benefit of our students in the Senate today. So what is cybersecurity? Cybersecurity is how individuals and organizations reduce the risk of cyber attack. It is the protection of devices, services, and networks, and the information within them from theft or damage via electronic means. It is also about preventing unauthorized access to the vast amounts of personal information we store on those devices online. How does cyber attack work? In general, cyber attack has 4 stages. Survey, 1, investigating and analyzing available information about the target in order to identify potential vulnerabilities. 2, delivery, getting to the point where they have an initial foothold in the system you are targeting. 3, the breach, exploit the vulnerabilities in a system to gain some form of unauthorized access. And lastly, the effect, carried out activities within a system that achieves the attacker's goals. Managing cybersecurity means getting the environment right before a threat evolves. So you should gather the information, prioritize the risk, and take steps to manage those risks. Who are the perpetrators of cyber crimes? 1, we have online criminals. Online criminals are skilled at identifying what can be monetized. For example, stealing sensitive data, or holding systems and information to ransom. So we call that ransomware, where somebody would go into the computer, take your data, and then ask you for some sort of ransom to be able to get back your data. Hackers are individuals with varying degrees of expertise, often acting in an untargeted way, perhaps to test their own skills or cause disruption for the sake of it. We also have the malicious insiders. They use their access to organizations' data or network to conduct malicious activity, such as stealing sensitive information to share with competitors. We also have foreign governments, generally interested in accessing very sensitive or valuable information that may give them a strategic or political advantage. And I'm sure you follow the US politics, and where we had the accusation of Russian interference in the elections of the President Donald Trump. Political activists, how to prove a point for political or ideological reasons, perhaps to expose or discredit an organization's activities. Terrorists, interested in spreading propaganda and disruption. You generally have less technical capabilities. And then we have the honest mistakes. Sometimes staff with the best of intentions make a mistake. For example, in emailing something sensitive to an incorrect email address. So these are some of the things that entail with cybersecurity. Madam President, Honorable Ernest Hilaire and myself, having attended the workshop, recognize that most of the parliaments of the Caribbean and the Commonwealth do have what we have called a standing committee for cybersecurity. We do not have. And we had a discussion, the Honorable Ernest Hilaire and myself, and I think that this is something that we should look at, introducing a standing committee for cybersecurity. I want to encourage the young persons here today that this is a very, very productive and interesting form of employment. It is highly technical, and it is a career that you can engage yourself in. There are a lot of courses that are going to be provided. The government of St. Lucia has to invest in you, the young people, in getting to be security conscious with the internet and other facilities. So I want to encourage you to look at the IT and take it very seriously, because this is an opportunity for you to get a valuable job. Secondly, Madam President, I also want to comment on the coronavirus, or the COVID-19, as spoken to about by the member of government business, the leader of government business. Only yesterday, Dr. Swami and other health practitioners visited the Borderley Correctional Facility. As you'd be aware, that Borderley has over 500 inmates and over 130 officers involved. So in the abundance of caution, we visited the facility to be able to identify a structure or building where we can house those persons, to isolate them if, and God forbid, that one of the prisoners or prison officers are infected with the COVID-19. We will be sending our needs to the Ministry of Health to kind of assist us in making sure that the building is properly serviced and we can do what we intend to do at that facility. So I want to thank you very much, Madam President. These are just a few words I wanted to say.
Papers to be laid. Honorable Minister for Health and Wellness, and Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I beg to lay the following papers standing in my name. Statutory Instrument Number 161, Fiscal Incentives Sunfresh Amendment Order. Statutory Instrument Number 162 of 2019, Finance Administration Act, Resolution of Parliament authorizing the Minister for Finance to borrow by means of advances. Statutory Instrument Number 163 of 2019, Finance Administration Act, Resolution of Parliament to borrow for capital expenditure, OECS Regional Health Project. Statutory Instrument Number 164 of 2019, Value Added Tax, Resolution of Parliament to approve draft Value Added Tax, Amendment of Schedules 1 and 3, Number 2 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 166 of 2019, Fiscal Incentives, WJ Engineering Services Incorporated Order. Statutory Instrument Number 167, Fiscal Incentives, St. Lou Woodworking Limited Amendment Order. Statutory Instrument Number 170 of 2019, Fiscal Incentives, Fresh Start Construction Company Limited Amendment Order. Statutory Instrument Number 171 of 2019, Customs Duties Amendment of Schedule 4, Number 4 Order. Statutory Amendment Number 172 of 2019, Customs Duties Amendment Schedule 4, Number 5 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 173 of 2019, Income Tax Exemption, Appointments, Judicial and Legal Services Commission, Number 2 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 174 of 2019, Value Added Tax, Amendment of Schedules 1 and 3, Number 2 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 4 of 2020, Immigration Visa Exemption, Events Company of St. Lucia, Inc., Order. Statutory Instrument Number 5 of 2020, Price Control Amendment, Number 1 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 6 of 2020, Excise Tax Amendment of Schedule 1, Number 1 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 7 of 2020, Aliens Licensing Exemption, Valor Rose, St. Lucia Limited Order, Statutory Instrument Number 8 of 2020, Aliens Licensing, Exemption, Royal Crescentia, St. Lucia Limited, Number 2 Order, Statutory Instrument Number 9 of 2020, Legal Aid, Appointment of the Board of the St. Lucia Legal Aid Authority Order, Statutory Instrument Number 10 of 2020, Standards, Fees Amendment Regulations, Statutory Instrument Number 11 of 2020, Export St. Lucia, Appointment of the National Export Council Order, Statutory Instrument Number 12 of 2020, Legal Profession, Eligibility, Taylor Rose Lorraine Order, Statutory Instrument Number 13 of 2020, Price Control Amendment Number 2 Order, Statutory Instrument Number 14 of 2020, Excise Tax Amendment of Schedule 1, Number 2 Order, Statutory Instrument Number 16 of 2020, Aliens Licensing Exemption, Surgical Life Eastern Caribbean Inc. Order, Statutory Instrument Number 17 of 2020, Public Health Nuances Amendment Regulations, Statutory Instrument Number 18 of 2020, Public Health Mosquito Control Amendment Regulations, Statutory Instrument Number 19 of 2020, Public Health Communicable and Notifiable Diseases Amendment Regulations, Statutory Instrument Number 20 of 2020, Price Control Amendment Number 3 Order, Statutory Instrument Number 21 of 2020, Excise Tax Amendment of Schedule 1, Number 3 Order.
Honorable Minister in the Ministry of Tourism, Information, Broadcasting, Culture and Creative Industries, responsible for culture and creative industries.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I beg to lay the following papers standing in my name. Statutory Instrument Number 159 of 2015, Tourism Incentives, Poinsettia Apartments Limited Order. Statutory Instruments Number 160 of 2019, Tourism Incentives, Cicero Management Limited Order. Statutory Instrument Number 165 of 2019, Tourism Stimulus and Investment, Primeco Corporation Order. Statutory Instrument Number 168 of 2019, Tourism Incentives, Spice of India Incorporated Order. Statutory Instrument Number 169 of 2019, Tourism Stimulus and Investment, Paradise Breeze Order. Statutory Instrument Number 1 of 2020, Tourism Incentives, Ludovic Art Studio Incorporated Order. Statutory Instrument Number 2 of 2020, Tourism Stimulus and Investment, Elsa Bed and Breakfast Order. Statutory Instrument Number 3 of 2020, Tourism Incentives, Prestige Suites Order. Statutory Instrument Number 15 of 2020, Tourism Stimulus and Investment, St. Joseph's Limited Order. Thank you.
Questions for oral reply? Leader of Opposition Business.
Thank you very much, Madam President, and let me say good morning to our distinguished students and fellow senators. In accordance with the standing orders of our standing orders clause 16.3, I hereby put a question to this side of the House. Can you please advise on the financial standing of the National Housing Corporation?
Leader of Government Business.
Thank you for the question, Senator. Madam President, I would like to invoke Section 18, subsection 5 of the Senate Standing Orders to defer answering this question at this time.
Leader of Opposition Business.
Madam President, in accordance with the Standing Orders, Clause 16.3, I hereby ask the question, when was the the final report of the technical
Senator,
audit?
You just need to say the number of the question. You don't need to read it out.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Madam President, in accordance with the Standing Orders of Clause 16.3, I hereby put the question number 2 before this Honorable House.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I am happy to report that the final report of the technical audit for reconstruction of St. Jude Hospital was submitted in December of 2017.
Motions. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move the following motion standing in my name. Resolution whereas it is provided under Section 39(1) of the Finance Administration Act, Cap 1501, that the Minister for Finance may, by resolution of Parliament, borrow money from a bank or other financial institution for the capital expenditure of government, and whereas it is further provided under Section 42(1) of the Finance Administration Act, Cap 1501, that there shall be charged on and paid out of the consolidated fund debt charges for which the government is liable, and whereas the Minister for Finance considers it necessary to borrow the sum of $20 million, the principal amount, from the Export-Import Bank of the Republic of China, Taiwan, for the purpose of financing the St. Jude Hospital Phase 2 construction project, and whereas the loan is repayable in 20 years from the date of first disbursement of the loan, inclusive of a 5-year grace period, and whereas the interest is payable at a rate of 6-month London Interbank Offered Rate plus 1.5% per annum, and whereas the loan payments shall commence after the grace period of 5 years has expired, and whereas the principal on the outstanding amount shall be repaid in 30 consecutive equal or as nearly equal as possible semi-annual installments, and whereas the terms and conditions proposed by the Export-Import Bank of the Republic of China to Taiwan are accepted, be it resolved that Parliament authorizes the Minister for Finance to borrow the sum of $20 million from the Export-Import Bank of the Republic of China, Taiwan, for the purpose of financing the St. Jude Hospital Phase 2 construction project. Be it further resolved that A, the loan is repayable in 20 years from the date of first disbursement of the loan, inclusive of a 5-year grace period. B, the interest is payable at a rate of 6-month London Interbank Offered Rate plus 1.5% per annum. C, the loan payments shall commence after the grace period of 5 years has expired. The principal on the outstanding amount, D, the principal on the outstanding amount shall be repaid in 30 consecutive equal or as nearly equal as possible semi-annual installments. E, the terms and conditions proposed by the Export-Import Bank of the Republic of China, Taiwan are accepted. Madam President, Madam President, this resolution to borrow additional funding to finance completion of the St. Jude Hospital is self-explanatory. It provides us with the amount of the loan, the purpose of the loan, the repayment terms, as well as the lender of the loan. This is a soft loan, Madam President, and as such, it has a low interest rate with an extended maturity profile, which means its impact on financing costs and risk will be insignificant. Madam President, I am almost tempted to say that I do not know why there should be so much additional debate on this resolution, Madam President, or any or much at all. Because, Madam President, this issue has been dealt with and debated today. However, knowing the nature of our opposition, who has, of course, to oppose for opposing sake at times, I expect more, if not greater, debate. I believe that we need to move forward with the construction of the St. Jude Hospital, Madam President, to finally complete the hospital. And this is needed more so now than ever, given the onset of the coronavirus. I believe that we need to move forward, Madam President, to finally complete this hospital. We have agreed on all sides, Madam President, that we need St. Jude Hospital. And we have given all kinds of reasons for the need to complete this hospital. The first one we hear of is that we need a hospital in the south of the island. And I don't think anybody can argue about that. I don't think anybody can debate against that. Secondly, it is way past time that we remove these people, the makeshift hospital that we have in the George Odlum Stadium, so that we can give the young people back their stadium. We know that the nurses, the doctors, the patients, they have endured a lot in a facility that was not intended for the purpose that it is being used for right now. Madam President, we are depriving the youth of their sporting facility. While we argue back and forth who has done what and who has not done what they ought to have done. Another fact, Madam President, is that we have an international airport, our one and only international airport, in that same area, that same location in the south. Madam President, at this point in time, I believe that we can agree to disagree on many decisions that were taken surrounding the construction of St. Jude Hospital. But at the end of the day, we need the hospital, Madam President, and we must complete the hospital. We have spent a lot of resources, financial, human, and otherwise, trying to complete this hospital. And if we are saying right now, we need an additional, a mere $20 million to complete this hospital, I do not understand, Madam President, why all the back and forth. It is not going to solve anything. No matter how much we go back and forth, it is not resolving the issue. It is not going to help us come up with additional funds, Madam President. I know, Madam President, I know the opposition is going to bring up the issue of borrowing. That we said we are not going to borrow, and so on and so forth. But we need to keep that statement in context, and we need to repeat it in its entirety, in that my administration, this administration said we are not going to borrow unless there is a revenue stream to finance that borrowing. Okay? Now I know that if we are able to complete the St. Jude Hospital, if we are, of course, given the additional funding that we need, the mere $20 million, to complete the hospital, that we are going to be able to augment our healthcare facilities in St. Lucia, together with OKEU, so that we can start looking at health tourism, to medical tourism, health tourism, to to provide us with a revenue stream to sustain our healthcare facilities that we are currently trying to build and currently trying to move into. So, Madam President, we need a fully functioning hospital in the south to provide that medical tourism. Of course, it is very close to the international airport, and if there's any incident, this is the first hospital that's going to respond to anything that would happen, God forbid. So, Madam President, I hope that in this Honorable House, as I present this resolution to my fellow senators, that they will see reason in us moving forward, moving on, and agreeing to this resolution that we are presenting here today to borrow a mere $20 million to complete a hospital that is going to be nothing like what we have seen before here in St. Lucia. A hospital that is going to service the people of St. Lucia, especially the people of the South, and anybody else that is visiting our shores that need medical care. I thank you, Madam President.
Senators, the question is that Parliament authorize the Minister for Finance to borrow the sum of $20 million from the Export-Import Bank of the Republic of China, Taiwan, for the purpose of financing St. Jude Hospital Phase 2 construction project. Be it further resolved that A, the loan is repayable in 20 years from the date of first disbursement of the loan, inclusive of a 5-year grace period. B, the interest is payable at a rate of the sixth London Interbank offered rate plus 1.5% per annum. C, the loan payments shall commence after the grace period of 5 years has expired. D, the principal on the outstanding amount shall be repaid in 30 consecutive equal or as nearly equal as possible semi-annual installments. E, the terms and conditions proposed by the Export-Import Bank of the Republic of China, Taiwan are accepted. Leader of Opposition Business.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Let me again add my voice and welcome in the students who are here, and of course fellow senators to this morning. Very important, and of course timely discussion or debate on a project that is very important and dear to the hearts of many St. Lucians, especially those who are in the south of the island. Madam President, before proceeding, I would like to take leave and congratulate the students of the Forestier School for bringing this trophy as it relates to science in the science fair. I think that we're commended in terms of the many achievements that have been, realized in this year as it relates to our children. And I say this primarily because we do have our children here, and like I told them that they must take grasp of this world. It is their time. It is an opportunity for them. They must not wait for persons to instruct them, but take this time very seriously and take the schoolwork very seriously, because they are indeed the future leaders of our country. Madam President, when I listen to the leader of government business, and I know the leader of government business is far more vocal than she has presented herself to be, because she do speak on issues when she have to speak on certain issues that are personal to her. I was a bit surprised that on a matter that is so important, a matter that is so critical at this juncture, that she's asking, let us not rehash the issues. Let us just sing Kumbaya and proceed, because the government is borrowing $54 million at this time, near the end of the term in office, to complete a project that started with their administration some years ago. Madam President, just to summarize it, with all the discussions that we have heard, it must be emphasized at this point, considering our vulnerability as a small nation, that the reconstruction of St. Jude Hospital is the saddest project story implementation in the history of St. Lucia. And I dare say, Madam President, as a quantity surveyor, with a first degree and a master's, Madam President, I'm more quantity surveyor than a politician or a parliamentarian. This project is infested with secrets and corrupt practices. And I'll prove that this morning, Madam President. Why I'm making this presentation, Madam President? One, I'm in the Parliament, and I'm accountable to the leader of the opposition who have made certain statements in the lower house. And I listened carefully, Madam President, to the issues. And in my opinion, humble opinion, Madam President, I can only conclude that this motive behind this project is the desire to spend as much money as possible for some reason or the other that I didn't understand, maybe stimulus or otherwise. But Madam President, more importantly, the idea of spending monies in this government recklessly without accountability is consistent, Madam President, with the nature, with what our young people are dealing with. Thus our crime problem, the easy means of making money or spending monies. Madam President, let me illustrate the St. Jude Hospital in a way that all of us can understand. Our children, single mothers who are at home, business people. Madam President, just imagine that you are working in the United States of America for years, saving monies to build a home for your 6 children that you have left in your neighbor's house. The house is overcrowded. You sent your monies home to build a house for your 6 children. The time when they're supposed to be transferred to the home, you arrive, but the building is 70% complete. It's incomplete. And you notice that there may have even been waste of your resources. But one of your kids, Madam President, even have gotten worse of his illness or her illness as a result of the overcrowding of your neighbor's house. Your children are weary and are not happy. But you are unhappy about your contractors because they have delayed. But the building is 70% complete. But you also have, Madam President, some monies left. There are some materials left. Madam President, do you go back to the bank and demolish what is 70% complete and build a new home for your children? Do you do this? Do you do this? I will read your standards based on your own audit report. Do you do this? Or, Madam President, which parent would do something like that? Madam President, you would not do this. And I dare any parent to suggest that they would demolish the 70% building and build a new building. Money is nothing for y'all. $54 million. But what a conscientious parent would do would salvage what's there, use the materials that's left. And in the case of St. Jude, let me tell you, there were 20 containers of materials left with all what is required to complete the hospital. There was $40 million left. Oh no, they did not complete it. And I have evidence to suggest that there were 20 containers of materials left because the Minister of Economic Affairs went in the media and said he found 20 containers of materials. There were paint, there were tiles, there were equipment. Monies were deposited to GE Electrical for all sophisticated equipment. Oh yes, I know you all are consulting. Is it true? Yes, I will provide you with the evidence. And listen, anybody in St. Lucia could go onto the web, St. Lucia News Online, and receive all of the information. But let me tell you, it is factual. So what happened, Madam President? They choose not to complete, but to build a new hospital.
Senator Mangal.
Madam President, I stand on a point of order, Section 36A. I think that the Leader of Opposition Business is misleading the House by indicating that this government is demolishing the St. Jude's Hospital that is 70% complete. He knows very well, Madam President, that this government has not demolished the St. Jude's Hospital project. In order to say that we're demolishing the project, he's alluding that we're demolishing an entire structure that was constructed before, and that is not the case. So he needs to withdraw that statement, Madam President.
Senator Henry.
Madam President, a hospital exists in full, not in part. So when you demolish 20% of it, it ceases to exist. So do not tell me that you did not demolish the hospital. You did not. What are you trying to tell me? You demolished the hospital because there were buildings built to function as a hospital. I didn't say you demolished all the buildings. I said you demolished the hospital. The buildings that you have demolished prevent you from operating St. Jude and completing it. You went on to build a new hospital. Yeah.
So why didn't go there?
Why you being so pedantic about hospital? But you demolish buildings.
Leader of Government Business.
Yeah.
Should have entered into a complete.
Madam President, the senator continues to mislead the House because he's talking about a hospital and there was never any hospital. It is a structure that was partially done, and it's not even partially complete. We cannot even talk about complete, Madam President, because it was just about 30% started. So the senator should stop, Madam President. The senator should desist from misleading the House by speaking about a hospital, because there was no hospital.
Senator Henry.
Madam President, I'm surprised the leader of Government Business do have the voice to speak on hospital. Recently there she said she knows nothing about the hospital in the media. She's only waiting for a key.
Senator Henry.
Madam President, the senator continues to mislead the House. I never said I do not know nothing about a hospital.
Senator Henry, please move along.
Thank you very much, Madam President.
You've made your point, and it has been clarified. It is buildings you're speaking of.
Yes.
Please continue.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I'm surprised, extremely surprised this morning at the response I'm getting.
And Senator Henry, can you continue without
Thank you very much, Madam
reference
President.
to what I've asked you not to continue to say? Just
Thank you
move
very much,
along.
Madam
Just
President.
move along, please.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I do understand. But, Madam President, to continue, let us pay close attention to the facts. The facts. And, Madam President, you may wish to journey with me. Let's go back. Madam President, it was about midnight, September, 8th of September 2009. Fire broke in the St. Jude Hospital. And by 2009, we all woke up to the reality. St. Jude Hospital has fallen. Madam President, the then Prime Minister was the Honorable Stephenson King. Madam President, I quote from the then Prime Minister, and hear what he said. Over the last 5 weeks, we have made significant stride towards the attainment of our vision for the reconstruction and modernization of St. Jude Hospital. In October, government received a technical delegation from Taiwan which presented a master plan for St. Jude Hospital. This plan was subjected to rigorous review by the St. Jude Hospital Task Force, and very shortly detailed technical specifications will be completed. The government will spare no effort to start the rebuilding process early in the new year. I must take this opportunity to publicly thank the Taiwanese government for the technical and other assistance which they provided thus far. Government is hopeful that the first phase of the new St. Jude Hospital will be completed within 18 months. That was the Prime Minister, Honorable Stephenson King, when the hospital got burnt. The hospital under them had to be completed within 18 months. Note carefully, he said there was a master plan. Comrades, there was a master plan. In addition, technical specifications would be available shortly. You look more like your brother than yourself today. But Madam President, let's fast forward and as you journey with me. 2011.
And Senator Henry,
Yes, Madam President.
the bill is about borrowing funds for the hospital. So I'm not inclined to listen to a long history.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm glad you said let us fast forward. And can we do that?
Madam President, not fast forward.
Thank you.
President, and I'll certainly do that within my time. I do not want to bore you with history. But Madam President, if you bear with me, at this point in time, as we're going to borrow that amount of money, it's important that St. Lucians understand where we are, where we're coming from. Because it would be difficult for me to conclude that I cannot support the motion before this House if we do not bring certain things to this House and make it clear. Madam President, if we speed it up to 2011, of course there was a new administration, the St. Lucia Labour Party. Madam President, you would ask me, what was done? And I would respond in this manner. The St. Jude Hospital at the time was approximately 140,000 square foot, 140,000 square foot to 160,000 square foot. Designed for approximately 90 beds, and I'll come back to that. Approximately $98 million was spent, and it will require approximately $30 million to complete. And you'd ask me, Madam President, was there value for money? Can the project continue and proceed with? You'd ask that question, and I say, oh yes. Did they waste your money, Madam President? You would ask. But Madam President, let me show you some facts you would want to consider. And Madam President, for that reason, I considered other hospitals across the region in the world to establish the price. Madam President, the OKEU hospital was built at about 175 million EC dollars. And for the sake of those, instead of looking at the large figures, let us look at the unit cost or the cost per square foot. OKEU, 151,000 square foot. The new hospital was built at $1,168 per square foot. Let's look at another hospital, Madam President. And Madam President, I look at the Arima General Hospital in Trinidad with 110 beds, a total square footage of 550, built at a unit cost of $1,964 per square foot. Let's look at a U.S. rural hospital with 25 beds, built at $1,135.90 per square foot. Let's take St. Jude Hospital as was being built. It was being built at a mere price of $866.67 per square foot. So you ask, Madam President, were we receiving value for money? Based on the rates being used to build hospitals across the region and across the world, the St. Jude Hospital was being built at a very good price per square foot. But why? And you would ask, Madam President, could it have been cheaper? Because there were existing buildings on the site. Madam President, the consultant report that this House has failed to expose to the public, and I quote page 155 of 201, cites specific issues from the consultant that they paid $1 million to do a report. And I quote, "The redevelopment and reconstruction of St. Jude Hospital occurs within the context of an existing site with existing buildings, some of which have been reused or integrated into the current planning. This is often done with the aim of reducing construction costs, but often leads to higher costs than new construction, as well as zoning law and strategies." Madam President, as a quantity surveyor who have participated in the rehabilitation of the Governor General's home and other buildings in the public sector over my 25 years, Madam President, most times we believe renovating buildings is cheaper than building new ones. So of course, St. Jude had its challenges, but notwithstanding what the consultant said, St. Jude came at a mere rate of $866.67. So I would tell you, Madam President, after coming home, of course, it was far less cheaper than OKEU. It was far less cheaper than the Arima hospital in Trinidad, far more cheaper than the hospital in the US. So why demolish it if it was cheaper? Madam President, I listened to pronouncement made at the South turning ceremony when the Taiwanese were here. And when I heard that there were about $30 million, you have to deal with crime. Let me focus on the hospital. I'm a quantity surveyor. You understand? I will tell you, everything in the report is there. Take your report. Take the St. Jude audit report. You understand? When they ask you all questions, you all do not want to answer, but now you all want to speak while I'm speaking. But I'll proceed, Madam President. Sorry about this. Madam President, a breakdown of the cost of St. Jude, or what you consider, what you would put into a certificate of completion. Decontamination and demolition works, 1.3 million. Civil works was 29 million. Plumbing, solar, water, and heating was 2.9 million. Electrical works at the time was 4.1 million. ICT, information communication technology, approximately 825,000. Air conditioning, ventilation was approximately $651,000. Windows, $584,000. Diagnostic imaging equipment at that time was pretty close to $759,000. Painting. Painting was about $1.7 million. Water and wastewater, $2.8 million. Materials and deposits, $31 million in the value of works. Madam President, according to FIDIC standard form of contracts, you can value works, but also include in your valuation materials that you have purchased as the contractor and be paid for it. So if I'm building a house for you, Madam President, I build the foundations, but I've gone and I've purchased all of the tiles, all of the windows, and it's on your site. In the payment certificate to get paid, I would also include those materials. What it means that $41 million worth of materials were included in the payment certificate. It means that there were materials for St. Jude, $41 million. When you have $30 million in your bank account to finish a hospital, you have $41 million of material. Why go and build a new hospital? What have we done with those $41 million worth of materials? I understood that they expired. You know why they expired? Because the minister responsible said in the media that he has been going back and forth. The only place I've heard that statement is in scripture where the devil said he has been going to and fro. Back and forth for 4 years. For 4 years. For 4 years. I know all of you are happy. The question I asked earlier on, you all do not want to answer, but here you all want to answer that. Go ahead. Go ahead. I am not speaking as a politician or as a parliamentarian. I'm speaking as a quantity surveyor. And I'm an only quantity surveyor in this parliament. But Madam President, more importantly, in the report you would ask the question, again, was there value for money? Madam President, you would ask, What exactly about this building? Madam President, I want to read page 51 of 201, 155 of 201, the issue dealing with St. Jude Hospital. The technical audit said, an audit prepared by this side, they paid $1 million for the audit, technical audit. Hear what the audit said. We do see great value present in the works completed to date and believe the project is salvageable and could be converted into the facility that can properly serve the needs of St. Lucia. As St. Jude Hospital is designated as a primary healthcare facility with one of its primary roles to ensure effective acute and referral services in the south of the island with future potential for growth and development. Madam President, the technical audit said that. But Madam President, can I qualify? How did he say it?
Madam President.
Madam President, he said that in the context.
Senator Mangal.
Yes, Madam President. I just want to, for my own information, find out whether the audit report has been a document of the House.
You're
and the
standing
Senate.
on what, Senator? On what, a point of order? What are you standing
No.
on?
Point of elucidation, Madam President. Section 36B.
Madam President, point of
I'd like to-
elucidation, I would like to proceed, Madam President. I would say this,
I'd like-
and for the benefit of the member,
Proceed, Senator Henry.
Yeah,
Madam
I'd like to
President,
make
and for the
document
benefit of the
House.
member, before your time, this document was already cited and has been made a document of the House. Check the former leader of government business. The former leader of government business that has been raised. But let me tell you, Madam President, the statement made in the audit that we do see great value present. Madam President, when you build a
Leader of
house...
government business. Leader of government business.
Yes, ma'am.
Madam President, on a point of elucidation, Madam President, I really would like to find
Madam
out whether
President,
that
I
is
would
the
like to
same
proceed with my
report.
presentation, Madam President, and I yield. I'm not going to yield my time. I need to proceed, Madam President, because we need to leave here at a certain time. The students are waiting to get up for their lunch. Madam President, let me tell you this, Madam President.
Senator Henry,
Yes.
you may proceed.
Thank you very much. Madam President, when we do a valuation on works, we just simply state the work has a value of X amount so that the contractor could be paid. When this technical auditor will say there's great value, he didn't say that there's value. Value would have been sufficient.
Leader of government business.
Madam President, on a point of order, Madam President, the Senator Henry is referring to the technical audit, the report of the technical audit. It is true that a technical audit, a final report of a technical audit has been presented in this House prior to now. However, since he asked the question, when was the final report of the technical audit for reconstruction of the St. Jude Hospital submitted? I just would like to know, Madam President, if this is the same final report of the technical audit that he's referring to, just for clarification, Madam President.
Senator Henry, all that I require you to do is please state from which report you are quoting.
Madam President.
Also for my information.
Thank you very much. The preliminary report, Madam President. But let me inform the leader of government business.
Senator Henry, the preliminary report does not tell me anything. What is the name of the report? In what year was it produced, etc.?
Madam President? The St. Jude audit report, technical report.
Has it been made a document of the House?
Yes, Madam President, Madam President, you could look at Hansard when the former leader of government business was there. Check Hansard. But Madam President, I am not on the government side. I am quoting from a document that is well known to be in circulation, Madam President. It is the government side responsibility to give the accuracy of that information.
The government side has to produce if they are quoting from it. You do not have to. But it is not the government side to inform me whether it is a document of the House if you are quoting from it and have stated that it is a document of the House. You have stated that. But the opposite is being said now. Had you not stated that, I may
Madam
not have
Pres-
required it of you, but you've stated it is a document of the House. Now, are we going to stop and find out through Hansard whether it is a document of the House or
Madam
not,
Pres-
or are you
Madam-
prepared to make it a document of the House?
Well, Madam President, the audit, the St. Jude technical audit, I'm prepared to make it a document of the House since I'm referencing it, and I could pull it out from my computer and give the members to complete it. It's complete to print it. It's a document that's 300 and plus pages, Madam President, and I'm sure it would take some time, but I would make it a document of the House. Thank you, Madam President.
Proceed, Senator Henry.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And I emphasize this point, Madam President, that the technical audit indicated that there was great value, not just value. When a payment certificate is prepared for a contractor, the architect signs that the value of work is. When the term is qualified to be great value, there's something more to it. But a document that you've paid $1 million for, why couldn't you follow the instructions? No. You decide to demolish sections of what was great value to build a new building. But Madam President, let me come to this a little more clearly. Madam President, remember I said that St. Jude Hospital was 165,000 square foot, or approximately 165,000 square foot. 140 to 160. You could take it, but you could measure it if you want to. There's documentation, you could verify it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Believe that. Don't worry that. But the point I'm making, Madam President, through you, is that Tapio Hospital is just about 50,000 square foot. It means, therefore, that St. Jude Hospital is more than 3 times the size of St. Jude Hospital. Tapio is more than 3 times the size of Tapio Hospital. Tapio Hospital has 30 beds. St. Jude Hospital was being built with 90 beds. And of course, if you do ratio and proportion with beds versus square footage, you could understand why. 165 or 150 to 90 as against 50 to 30 beds. OKEU Hospital, the new hospital. How many beds? OKEU. It's less than VH, but it was designed for 109. 109. Madam President, according to the design brief, St. Lucia needs 216 beds overall. Madam President, and of course you would recognize those statistics as guided by the professionals. St. Jude Hospital, 90 beds. OKEU 105, we need a total of 216 beds to satisfy our population. Why do you build a new hospital on St. Jude? And that statement was made by the Honorable Guy Joseph, our Minister of Economic Affairs.
Senator Henry, you have 15 more minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I wish I had more time. But of course you would not provide me with. But let us proceed. I will make do with the time that I have, Madam President. I'll make do with the time that I have. That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. I will say the rest in public on the market step when I have a chance. But I'll tell you, if St. Jude Hospital is 90 beds, OKEU is 105, we need a total national bed of 16. Why do you build a new hospital on St. Jude? 80,000 square foot more. 80,000 square foot more, and that pronouncement, in fact, it's not, it is 145. That pronouncement was made by Guy Joseph in the sword-turning ceremony. Honorable Guy Joseph. Honorable, 145,000 square foot of new hospital space. So you have 165, you have now 145,000 square foot of space.
Senator Henry,
Yeah.
I remind you that ministers of government are referred to by
Thank you
their
very much, Madam President. My deepest apologies. The Honorable Guy Joseph. So you now have at OKEU 175,000 square foot. You have at St. Jude 165, and now you add in 145,000 square foot more. That is what he said in, oh yeah, I love that. You all must listen to when members of cabinet speak in. You understand? What we do have now is one mega hospital in Beaufort. One mega hospital. Guess what? We cannot maintain it. Because when you build in a house for you to live, you must not just think as to how much you could spend to enter the house, but how much it will cost for you to maintain it. Because what you call the life of a building is not just cost, capital cost to build, but the cost of maintaining a building within your life is almost the same amount it's taking for you to build it. So if you build a house for $500,000, and that's what you can afford, you stretch yourself and you get the loan, you are in problems, because to maintain that building, when it starts to deteriorate, it all, for the entire 30 years, will come to the same amount, $500,000. You now putting yourself in a $1 million problem. We cannot afford to maintain St. Jude when it was 165,000 square foot. How do we maintain it when it is 300,000 square foot? Repurpose, yeah, repurpose. While we are repurposing, coronavirus coming at us. And guess what? They're not thinking so well. They say we're going to quarantine people at Rat Islet. Rat Islet is 3 acres of land. St. Jude is 3 acres of building space. So why do you go to Rat Islet, that's 3 acres of land, but you have a building in Beaufort that's already 3 acres? 165,000 square foot of building space divided by 43,560 square foot per acre will give you approximately 3 acres. Or 1 carry. Your carry. Let me tell you, the worst thing is when politicians believe that they are doctors, they are engineers, they're everything. Oh, I'm a quantity surveyor by profession. I am a quantity surveyor by profession. I did land surveying by profession. I spent all my time building the new land registry and surveying all lands in St. Lucia, and I spent it so much, more than 20 years working in the Ministry of Planning, building all of the buildings you see around. I am a quantity surveyor. And that's why I speak so passionately about it. But I'm not a doctor. But you must tell the politicians who hold in ministries to listen to professionals. Because look at where we are today. We are building galore. We have hospital. Let me tell you, we might even sell hospital now.
Senator Henry, remember you speaking to me?
Oh, sorry, Madam
and to return to the debate at hand.
You know. But Madam President, there's more to the debate. Madam President, if you follow the discussion that has taken place and that has been led by this side, how they go swinging, seesawing about the issues. At what time the leader of government business said in the media, we need to demolish all of the buildings. I know the coronavirus have all kinds of effects of temperature, but it also affects the mind. It prevents us from remembering certain things too.
Leader of government business.
Yeah, Madam President.
Madam President, on a point of order, I stand again. The Honorable Senator is misleading the House.
No, I'm not.
I have never on any occasion stood in the media or anywhere else and said that anybody should demolish all buildings. So he needs to retract.
Madam President, I'm not going to retract. If we could get to social media right now and get on St. Lucia News Online, you would listen to the members saying it. And Madam President, it's time that we use the technology available so when we quote somebody, the professionals out there can just flash that out.
Senator Henry, you are not in the position clearly to provide the evidence that you just gave. So since you are not, please
Madam President, although I've said it, I
statement.
withdraw it and proceed with my presentation, Madam President. But statements have been made to that effect. that we should demolish the building because they're not good. Madam President, at another time, Madam President, and I could say in March 9th, 2017, the new chairman, Dr. Mondesi of St. Jude, talked, and he said, and I quote, the new chairman that they appointed as chairman of St. Jude, hear what he said at a tour. He said, I saw ego, political misinformation, and mismanagement, and that there has to be a moment in the life of a politician when his conscience must take over his love for power, and ask the people to the politicians to prioritize healthcare. This is what Dr. Mondesi said. The former candidate that went up against the Honorable Dr. Kenny Anthony, the person you all appointed, he said there comes a time, and I quote, there is a moment in the life of a politician when his conscience must take over his love for power. Why would he have made that statement? A medical doctor, when he taught St. Jude. What did he see? When a quantity surveyor and a doctor, medical doctor, can come together, Madam President, you can believe us. You can believe us. Because this is strange professions, and for some reason or the other, the two of us can coincide. But Madam President, on the 5th of April 2017, hear what happened. 5th of April, the Honorable Guy Joseph at St. Jude Hospital Project Office and the audit team said, they will recommence the work of St. Jude very soon, but with a reduced bed count to 75. Recently they said they're building a new wing, 80,000 square foot, to bring it up to 90. But in 2017, he said he is redesigning it to reduce it to 75. On the 5th of April 2017, he said the report on the existing design relative to the works implemented and to determine suitability for operations of a hospital accreditation. He said that. March 9, 2017. Listen to me. St. Lucia will not cure its ills and problems by mere voting, but by knowing the truth and having a conscience and being conscious.
Senator Henry, please stay on point and please move
Thank you very much,
the
Madam
discussion
President.
further. You have just about 5 minutes left.
Madam President, on May 29th, on the 29th of May 2018, Honorable Guy Joseph said within a month, a full statement that by the PM will be given. He said the final report came in. On May 18th, Honorable Guy Joseph indicated that the final report came in. I asked the question in this Honorable House today, and it was answered. In December 2017, that report actually came in. But the Honorable Guy Joseph indicated that the final report came in. And he said that on the 29th of May 2018. But Madam President, what is more important for this is that the terms of reference, Madam President, the terms of reference for the technical audit. The final report shall be submitted 12 weeks after the effective date of the contract. When was the contract issued for the technical audit? In 2016. 12 weeks after the final report supposed to come. He said in May 2018 that he has received it. You said in this house. It came in December 2017. So how do I reconcile this? But why would you prepare an audit, submit it on time, the draft report, 300 and something pages, but delay in submitting the final report? Why would you? I Are you cooking something to justify the demolition of the hospital when your report have already stated that the building is of great value? What are you doing behind the scenes? Why? Madam President, I don't expect the leader of government business to understand, because I do sympathize with her. She's waiting for the key. But in a turnkey arrangement, where you give somebody a contract, and there's a form of contract where they call turnkey contracts. Turnkey contracts is when you give somebody a contract, they design, they build, and all you're waiting for is your key. In the traditional form of contracts, Madam President, you get a quantity surveyor to hire, prepare the bills of quantities, get an architect to design, and they tender. And based on that, a payment certificate or final certificate is prepared, and you hand over your building. I listened to the Honorable Guy Joseph in the lower house said, it's a cost-plus contract they have on St. Jude. Cost-plus. And that scared me, Madam President. Madam President, a cost-plus contract is where your price is determined by the cost plus something else. My brother, a cost-plus contract based on the audit, based on the technical audit. The technical consultant said that we use FIDIC, we use the ICE, and we use bespoke contract. Check the technical audit prepared. Take your technical report. Madam President, of course I would not. Read your technical report. But Madam President, when you're going to implement a cost-plus contract, you know when people implement cost-plus contract? Madam President, if you're going to build a bridge from here to Matnik, and you cannot determine the cost, but the project is more important than the cost, you hire persons with that experience, and what you do, Madam President, you pay the cost and you agree on a fee. That is called cost-plus. Now, that fee can be a percentage of the cost. Madam President, when you have a percentage plus the cost and you don't know what the cost is going to be, you do not know what the fee is. And you know what, Madam President, a disadvantage with cost-plus contract? The contractor is influenced to increase the cost, because the higher the cost, the greater his fee. Sometimes you could be innovative as a quantity surveyor to come with a fixed fee, but when you come with a fixed fee, Madam President, he will try to speed up the project and give you short works because his fee is already in his pocket. You know what he's going to get.
Senator Henry, please wrap up.
I'm wrapping up, Madam President. I heard St. Jude is a cost-plus contract. Only terms of contract you should use when you do not know what you're doing. Madam President, somebody said the contractor who is now there came in immediately after election. But now he's a subcontractor. Can you imagine at what time that the child become the parent? Is that something like the Immaculate Conception?
Senator
A
Henry,
miracle?
your time is up.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I do hope, Madam President, that I cannot support borrowing of $54 million if the government cannot account for what they are doing with this money at this point in time. Thank you very much.
Senator Mangal.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And I would like to say welcome to this first sitting of the Senate for the year 2020. To my fellow parliamentarians, senators on the opposite side, my two independent senators. And I am thankful today that we are certainly blessed by the presence of the students from the Corinth Secondary School. I had a little moment to interact with them before we started. And
Senator Mangal, just
yes.
a second. Thank you, students from Corinth. I trust you got a taste of what it's like to be in Parliament. Enjoy your day.
Thank you, students, for being with us. Should I allow them a moment to go, or can I continue?
Proceed, Senator.
So it was a pleasure to have the students from the Corinth Secondary School. I know that the Corinth Secondary School do offer technical vocational studies, and I do know that there are a number of them who have shown interest in the building field, and that is why they are here today to to learn a bit about St. Jude's Hospital and all the debate that we are having pertinent to St. Jude's Hospital. Madam President, it is also of grave concern to us in this country and of course throughout the world what is happening with the coronavirus. And I must take this opportunity to congratulate the Minister for Health for briefing us on the country's preparation for any unlikely event or any event that may occur in St. Lucia. So far, we must knock on wood and thank God that we've had no cases. Despite that, the virus is closing in on us from both ends, from the north and the south. I know it has affected a lot in this country and a lot globally. It is affecting travels. I can attest to tell you that there was supposed to be a conference today at Sandals in the building field for the launch of new building materials, with the facilitators being from the United States. And that conference had to be cancelled because those persons could not travel or refused to travel to St. Lucia. I also do know that, of course, the building field is expected to take a blow because a lot of our building materials do come from the People's Republic of China to St. Lucia. And China in those areas are practically closed in the cities like Guangzhou and, of course, Nanjing and so on, which have the major factories for building materials. A popular show, which normally happens in the month of April, has been cancelled in China because of the coronavirus. I remain optimistic, and I pray to God that, of course, the world in its entirety can swim through the tides of this difficulty, and we could see clearly an improvement coming in the near future. Madam President, I stand here today in total support of this bill, this motion to borrow $20 million US dollars, 54 million EC dollars, for the continuation of the reconstruction of St. Jude's Hospital, Madam President. And I do so, Madam President, because I know that health is one of the most important things of without a country that is healthy, we cannot have a productive country. And when we do, unfortunately, have our people that are sick, we need to be able to have a proper facility to take care of them. Now, what has happened with St. Jude's over the years, Madam President, since 2009, that fire and construction having started in 2010? Madam President, we've heard so much this morning, and we've heard so much from the opposition about St. Jude's Hospital. But the good thing, Madam President, is that documents do not lie. And documents are available to be able to tell us exactly, or rather I should say not documents do not lie, but there are documents that are available to dispel a lot of what is being established or what has been said this morning and also in the lower house. And Madam President, why do we need to build a new wing or a new extension to St. Jude's Hospital? And we've heard about the many problems and the many difficulties with the existing construction works at St. Jude's. Despite the report, despite everything else, I decided on my own to visit St. Jude's before this meeting to be able to ascertain for myself what are some of the difficulties with the existing wing, the existing east wing, and the existing construction work in the hospital, Madam President. And when I got there, I was amazed to see the height between the ground floor and the upper floor of that particular building. I took a tape and I measured the distance between those two, between the ground floor and the distribution lines. So below the second floor, there are distribution lines for oxygen, for all sorts of other chemicals which will be used in the hospital, for hot water, etc. And those lines are exposed. So I took a tape measure and I measured from the ground to those lines up there, Madam President. And you know what I got? You know what I got? 7 feet, 4 inches. Now when I'm standing, and I've measured myself, when I'm standing, to give you an idea, when I'm standing straight and I stretch up my hand, the tip of my fingers are actually 8 feet. It means that standing, and if I stretch my hand at St. Jude's Hospital, my entire palm would go through the pipes on the second floor. Now, is this normal for a hospital, for a public institution, right? That first of all, there could be tampering of those lines by anyone who's tall like me, right? And also there could be a disaster where somebody could be affected by those lines, and so on. So I decided, out of the abundance of caution, to just simply Google the height between buildings or hospitals, especially the standard height between floors. And simple Google tells me that it's supposed to be 2.7 meters, or approximately 8 feet 10 inches tall. In St. Jude's, Madam President, it is 7 feet 6 inches. Now you may tell me, probably, I don't know, probably the hospital which was built in 1940 may have been that height, right? May have been that height. But if we are going to build a new wing, if we are building a new extension to St. Jude's Hospital, why follow this? Why not go in and follow the proper specifications and build in accordance to the latest specs and the latest requirements for St. Jude's? There are several other irregularities that I came across in St. Jude's Hospital, Madam President, as well. So here we are. Under the leadership of Stephenson King, the whole concept started in the renovation and repair of St. Jude's Hospital. But when the Labour Party came into office in 2011, and it is there in several of the presentations by the Minister of Finance, in 2013 and so forth, they decided to change the scope of the works. The scope of the works was changed, and it was indicated by all indications St. Jude's Hospital will be a brand new hospital. So if you follow in the concept of preparing a new facility, a brand new facility, why do not follow the modern specs of constructing a brand new facility? Why not do so, Madam President? And so you moved on, and you started building in a piecemeal fashion. You started building, and then you add a chapel, you just add in, you're changing things around, you add in this, you add in that. And mind you, I should say, Madam President, that there was no contract costs, no steel contract costs at the time under the Labour Party when this was being built. None whatsoever. There was none. And today we heard that St. Jude's was being built at a cost which was less than other hospitals being built, Madam President. And that's why I said, documents does not lie. Documents does not lie, Madam President. In March 30th, 2016, under the reign of the St. Lucia Labour Party, the then Permanent Secretary wrote to the Honorable Prime Minister.
Henry.
Madam President, point of order 36A of the standing orders, Madam President. The member indicated that there were no contract price. Again, that's misleading. There were a number of contracts, Madam President. And if it's what the price, they are in the technical report. They are in the technical report. I've made it a document of the House. Until then, I think you should withdraw because there were, Madam President, there were signed contracts, and the document indicated that those contracts were signed by the Permanent Secretary. Madam President, I'll take my seat and have the relevant document. I will return to my...
Thank you, Madam President. I'm not withdrawing my statement because clearly there was no fixed price contract and there was no contract, because this very document I'm about to present, Madam President, and I will make it a document of the House if I have to, dated 30th March 2016, from the Permanent Secretary to the Honorable Prime Minister. Okay, and I read, reference is made to the current contract between the Government of St. Lucia and Halco Group Limited to facilitate the design, procurement, and supervision services associated with the St. Jude's Hospital Reconstruction Project. This contract expires March 31st, 2016. And the gist of it is to ask for a renewal for Halco services. So if there was such a contract and so on, which expired and so forth. Are you standing on a point of order, sir?
Point of order 36A, Madam President. Again, the member is misleading the House.
In what way?
Madam President, the member is referring to the consultant contract and is not referring to the contract relating to the construction of St. Jude. I will read, Madam President, 176-201 from the technical audit which has been made. The accumulative value of works and supply contracts awarded is 118,109,17.18. Of this sum, 82,000 is reported to be as certified payment. All construction contracts were signed by the incumbent permanent secretaries of the Ministry of Finance, Economic Affairs and National Development between 2010 and 2015. These were Minister Isaac Anthony, Dr. Reginald Darius, and Tracy Polius.
Madam President, the same thing is happening if a cost-plus contract. The Treasury will not pay if you do not have a contract. So those contracts are interim documents and interim contracts
Madam
that
President,
are being prepared.
Madam President,
can I move on?
Madam President, 46 standing orders, Madam President. Madam President, the member is...
Senator Henry, calm down. Have a seat, please. When you stand on a point of order, let me call your name.
Thank you, Madam
The
President.
recording persons do not know who's standing.
Thank you
Senator
very much,
Henry.
Madam President. And I will try to restrain myself a little. But, Madam President, I cannot sit here and hear on what is totally misleading. Madam President, cost-plus contracts were mentioned by the honorable member in the lower house on Tuesday as the form of contract. Madam President, I take it that a cost-plus contract would have the necessary standard form of contract and would be signed. What he made mention to was that there were no contracts actually signed. I did provide him with the technical audit that indicated that all construction contracts were signed by the incumbent permanent secretaries of the Ministry of Finance, Economic Affairs, National Development between 2010 to 2015. These were Minister Isaac Anthony, Dr. Reginald Darius, and Tracy Polius. These were contracts. Those contracts, as indicated, Madam President, were FIDIC 1987, ICE second edition 1995, FIDIC 1999, and bespoke contracts. They are in the technical audit.
Leader of Government Business.
On a point of order, Madam President, this document that the Honorable Senator, opposition leader, is referring to has not been submitted to this Honorable House, Madam President.
Senator Henry, you have quoted extensively from the document, and you have informed this chamber that it is a document of the House. Had you just mentioned it now and again or in passing, I may not require that we establish that it is in fact a document of the House. So let us not continue through it until we can show that it is.
Thank you.
Mangal.
Thank you, Madam President. I do hope that a note is being taken of all the time that has been taken away from me. To proceed with my thing. Madam President, I will not extend this argument, but simply to tell you that presently...
Senator Henry.
Madam President, 46(1)(a), Madam President, all due respect to, I just need a clarification, Madam President, on what you've just highlighted. Since the member on government side are making reference to facts without quoting any documentation, like the statement made by the member that there's no contracts, how then can there be a debate if I am referencing a particular document that I should not reference, but the member is at liberty to just state that there are no contract documents without without highlighting a source document? Madam President, how am I guided by such a ruling, Madam President?
Senator Henry, I did not say that you cannot quote from it. I just want to establish that it is in fact a document of the House.
Yes, Madam President. I mean...
Furthermore, Senator Mangal said he would not continue with that line of argument.
I'll just proceed to say, Madam President, that presently the contract which is ongoing, there are interim contracts that have been prepared for the contractor that have been signed. So there are contracts for payments. And likewise, in the time of 2011 to 2016, there would have been interim contracts for the contractors and for Halcro to be paid, right? But there was no fixed price contract to say that we went into the construction of a hospital. That was the price. That is where we proceeded. I shall proceed on the matter. I shall move forward,
Senator
Madam
Henry.
President.
Madam President, again on a standing orders 35.
Are you standing
On
on
a
a point of order?
31, Madam President, the member is misleading the House. There's no such term as interim contracts. No such term. There's interim payments. There's no such term as interim contracts. The member, if he's using this term, should please indicate technically and what is he talking about by interim contracts.
Madam President.
Senator Mangal, please.
Yes, Madam President.
I'll
just move ahead. I don't want to be in an argument over these matters, Madam President. But documents are here, Madam President. Okay, and I'm happy to hear that we have a quantity survey in the House, Madam President. And figures were quoted coming to square foot areas and so on, and that St. Jude's Hospital under the construction of the Labour Party government was the most efficient construction at $865 a square foot, he stated, while he quoted Trinidad and OKU as over $1,200 plus a square foot. Madam President, the very same documents he quoted from, and from the report, the Shanta King's report, handover report, Madam President, it is right there. It is right there to indicate that 98,451.
Senator Henry.
Madam President, the member is quoting from a document that he has not made a document of the House. Madam President, I would like to continue with this debate, but Madam President, I think that there's an unfairness, and I would probably, Madam President, choose not to participate if this can be so flagrant and blatant. Because I was chastised for making a document of the House. The member just stood up and started quoting from a document.
Very well, Madam President. I shall make this document a document of the Senate. I'm quoting from page 15, okay, of the Shanta King
Senator Mangal,
report.
like I said, before you rise, I have to call your name.
Sorry, Madam President.
Senator Henry, just to be clear, when the member rises to speak and is about to quote, he may not be quoting in a lengthy manner from some material. So I do not automatically and immediately need him to make it a document of the House. So you need to give the chamber time to discern whether it needs to be a document of the House or not. So I would advise you to calm down and let us get on with the debate. Senator Henry, Senator Mangal, if it is going to be lengthy, please make it a document of the House. If you are quoting a short, concise something from it, please proceed.
Yes, Madam President, that's what I was just doing, less than half a page of the document. I was just quoting to state that the exit report indicated that $98,451,346.85 was spent, okay, up until at the time before, by June 2016. And it summarizes the figures from 2009 to 2010 all the way to 2017, the various years and the various amounts that were being spent. So it is clear that that particular amount was being spent, Madam President. Then the document I would like to make the document of the House is that letter from the Permanent Secretary, which I was reading from, dated March 30th, 2016. Okay, and it says in the second paragraph, there were various delays with the respect of the implementation of works ranging from ability for funding to remobilization of contractors.
Let me hear what you're quoting from. I didn't hear.
Sorry. I'm quoting from a letter from the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Planning and National Development, to the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, dated March 30th, 2016.
Proceed.
Okay, good. It says, consequent upon the continuation of the works, there is need to continued supervision of the various works and supplies contract. Given the circumstances relating to the need for completion and transition into the new facility, it would be practical to continue with the services of the existing firm for supervision services, given that they are mobilized on site, familiar with the project design and possesses key information relating to implementation over the life of the project. Additionally, a change in supervision consultant firm may result in delays. Madam President, it says, Halco Group Limited has submitted a fee proposal highlighted in Table 1 below to allow for successful conclusion of the project. The new award would result in a revised estimate for design and supervision services of EC $15.5 million in 2016. The total project cost is estimated, and Madam President, I want to say that again. The total project cost is estimated at EC $178.7 million with a supervision cost ratio of 8.7%, Madam President. That is in 2016. So when we heard that the project is 80% complete or 70% complete, at 2016, Madam President, a handover report says that it was at $98 million. And in the very 2016, a PS is asking the Minister for Finance for approval to extend the project to $178 million, Madam President. Make a simple calculation. This means that this project was approximately 50% complete. If you simply times 98 million times 2, what do you get, Madam President? What do you get, Madam President? So these are the facts. When we say that the project was complete and that this is what was happening, why therefore, if you had a master plan, if you knew exactly what was going on, why in 2016 would the scope of the works change so drastically that you now have to write for an additional sum of about, what, $80 million to complete the project, Madam President? Why?
Senator Mangal, you'll make it a document of the House.
Yes, Madam President.
Senator Henry.
Madam President, I will keep my statement for when I've received the document. I would like to have a read of the document before I speak.
Senator Mangal.
Very well, Madam President. So if we simply do the maths, Madam President, by using the very same calculation, and I'm going to use the square foot area, 140,000 square feet, over that $178 million, Madam President. It means, therefore, that the cost of St. Jude's would have been nearly $1,300 per square foot. More expensive than any of the hospitals that he quoted, Madam President. More expensive, Madam President.
Madam President, he's again misleading the House. I did quote a hospital.
Are you starting a point of order?
Point of order, Madam President.
Senator Henry.
Madam President, I did present at a hospital that's $1,444 and more expensive than the amount. Again, he's misleading because he said that it is higher than all what I've presented. That is incorrect. Please withdraw.
Senator Mangal.
Madam President, but certainly if the calculations are done, it is not going to cost $865 a square foot. Certainly, it will not cost $865 a square foot.
Senator Mangal, if your statement was incorrect, please withdraw it.
No, Madam President, my statement was not incorrect.
You said it certainly would not be more than it would certainly be more than 800 and something.
Yes, Madam
Which
President.
One is it? Are you being precise, or are you guessing that it will be?
What he presented this morning was to say that Trinidad was $1,200 and something a square foot. Okay, EU was 1,100 and something square foot. If you simply do the maths and take 178 million plus and you divide it by 140,000 square feet, you're going to get about $1,300 per square foot. And it's on that basis I said that it is more expensive than any of those that he presented himself this morning. Madam President.
Another point of order. Based on what I presented, USA, $1,556 per square foot. I did presented this. I read from this. I provided the list of...
Senator Henry, I have not even called you.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, when it...
We agreed we would establish it was a document of the House and then you would refer to it. We will break for lunch shortly and we can confirm that that is so. Senator Mangal.
Thank you very much, Madam President. So I move ahead, Madam President. Okay. We've been hearing, and of course the panic button has been pressed. We've been told that you give someone to build your house, it is 70% complete, and you come back home and you've been told that your entire house is being demolished, Madam President. Okay? For the record, the government of this UWP has demolished only 2 small structures on the site. 2 small structures on that particular site in question. Well, you've done your research, so go ahead and deal with it. Madam President, we've been told by this government that the St. Jude's Hospital, a number of buildings on this St. Jude's Hospital site will be incorporated into this new design and into the project itself, Madam President. And so, Madam President, I'm going to make this as well a document of the House. This is the site layout plan or the master layout design of St. Jude's Hospital, Madam President. And in this layout, everything that is circled there in blue is part of the existing structures that were on St. Jude's Hospital, constructed previously to this new wing extension. And all of what you see here in blue will be integrated and used as part of the St. Jude's Hospital project, Madam President. I can give you a list of what are those things. The entire West Wing, which exists, will be used as the administrative center, Madam President. The warehouse, the big warehouse they built, will also be used and incorporated. The ambulance building, which is practically complete, will also be used, Madam President. The gift shop will be used, Madam President. The medical record center will be used, Madam President. The sewage treatment plant will be used. And also the possibility is that we will also use the chapel, Madam President. So, and the morgue as well. So it really leaves that the East Wing only will be the area of concern that will not be used and will not be integrated into this new hospital and will be fit for purpose, will be repurposed, Madam President. So without wasting the people's money, without demolishing or just leaving the people's business aside, we are going to be repurposing this the particular areas that will not be used, Madam President, and to ensure that we have a comprehensive site structure, okay, that every single building on that site will be utilized in the future. Now they tell you that we are wasting money. We are wasting money on St. Jude's Hospital, Madam President. We've already established that up to June 2016, over $98 million was spent on St. Jude's. But there were contracted amount of $118 million, and we heard that figure from the opposite side. $118 million, with a proposed expanded cost to $178 million, Madam President. We came in, and for good reason, we had to assess what was happening at St. Jude's, and we had to take a decision to reconstruct a new wing for St. Jude's Hospital, Madam President. But let's face the facts. Let's look at, are we wasting the government's money or the people's money or not? So over $98 million was spent up to 2016 under their watch. From 2016, Madam President, to 2017, under this government, $1,440,456.28 was spent on St. Jude's. 2017 to 2018, $261,264.46 was spent, Madam President. 2018-2019, $4,595,724.31 was spent, Madam President. 2019 to 2020, with the construction, obviously, of the new wing that we put in, $28 million, $312, $900.49 was spent. A grand total, Madam President, to date of $610,705.54, Madam President, was spent. And that could be obtained from the Ministry of Economic Development cumulative project expenditure for the various years, Madam President.
Senator
And look at the work.
you have 15 more minutes.
That should be fine. No, give me some more time. Give me some more time. 30 minutes. 30 minutes.
Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to invoke Standing Order 35-3 to give the Senator an additional 30 minutes, Madam President? 15 minutes, Madam President, to conclude his presentation.
Honorable Senators, the question is that Standing Order 35-3 be invoked to allow the Senator an additional 15 minutes to make his contribution. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Senator Mangal.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you very much, Senators, for the additional time provided for this. Madam President, so we cannot refute those facts. These are from documents. You know, contrary to what has been said, I've heard all sorts of figures that we've spent more than the $98 million. We've said, I've heard that before. So this is right there. This is what we need to establish. That it is $34 million, $610,705.54. That is what this government has spent to date. And let us look at the value of the works, Madam President, that is there. We are constructing a brand new wing that encompasses almost all of the operations of the hospital. 2 floors, a ground floor and a first floor, sorry, 2-story building. Okay? Look at the pace of the development, Madam President. Look at the pace in which this development is going. We recognize, and this government has been blamed and say, well, but you all stopped the hospital for almost 4 years, Madam President. What do? It took them 4.5 years. They gave several dates. You've heard the Minister for Finance then, the Honorable Prime Minister and member for Beaufort South, in several of his budget presentation, give several different dates and expanding the project, etc. You heard the Minister for Health at the time give several different dates. What happened, Madam President? Did they deliver the hospital for the people of the South? No. They did not deliver the hospital, Madam President. We have not given a single date that has been surpassed on St. Jude's Hospital. None whatsoever. We simply indicated that from the construction of the new wing, it is going to take 18 months. And that construction began, it was November last year, 2016. So if you look at 18 months from November last year, it should take us to what? May 2021, Madam President. And at the pace that this hospital is moving, I believe it is quite possible, and that confidence was actually disseminated out by the PS in the Ministry of Economic Development, Mr. Claudius Emmanuel, saying that it is quite possible we will deliver this hospital ahead of time. And this is what we've always been doing, Madam President. We need to have more confidence in our local contractors. Our local contractors that this government has delivered so far every project ahead of time and within budget. St. Jude's, Madam President, will be no different.
That's right.
I am optimistic that St. Jude's will be no different. That we will have this project delivered ahead of schedule and within budget, Madam President. And I must, at this juncture, say thank you to the hard-working men and women, our construction professionals, our laborers, our carpenters, our masons, who are toiling hard day and night, Madam President, on the St. Jude's reconstruction site. Day and night, in some cases, free shifts, free 8-hour shifts. So we're going round the clock, Madam President. Concrete is being poured at an enormous pace. Formwork, steel, and so on. And all of it is coming together. If you're not looking at this show, make it real. Make it real? Yeah. Keeping it real. Keeping it real. Tuesday night on Hot 7 FM. Right. Look at the pictures. Look at the drone shots that have been shown to us of the various progress being made by St. Jude's Hospital. On a weekly basis, we're getting that progress report of what is happening in St. Jude's. And this is why, are you hearing from the opposition, finish the hospital, finish the hospital? It's no longer about finishing the hospital. It's a different strategy altogether. Either we're wasting the people's money or we're demolishing what belongs to the people, Madam President. But I can tell you, it is very rare that you go all over the place and see a hospital done in a piecemeal fashion. Piecemeal fashion, different small buildings all over the place. What we are doing is more integrated. The services are mainly integrated, one within each other, within a main structure and other support services, Madam President. And I remain confident that that project will be delivered and will be delivered as an outstanding facility for the people of the South and by extension for the people of St. Lucia, Madam President. Now it has been said, of course, you know, they're looking to blame us just like they've done. They left office in 2016, Madam President, and there was no DCA approval for the entire project. No DCA approval. As a matter of fact, the exit report that I referred to indicated that there was no DCA approval up to that point from Shanta Cape. And now they want to accuse us of having no DCA approval. Because, of course, they want to fit us into the same...
Senator Mangal, the debate is about borrowing money for the hospital.
Yes, Madam President.
Let us remain
yes, Madam President.
with the debate.
Yes, Madam President, and of course...
I've given you some latitude. Let us get back to the debate.
Yes. But just to say, Madam President, of course it is essential to have approvals in order for you to borrow money, because if you do not have approvals, then of course the financial institutions, the Exim Bank from Taiwan and so on, may not give you the necessary funding that you require. So it is all integrated into the process of borrowing funds. So I can tell you that the DCA approval was obtained for this project under this government, Madam President. And they can go and check it out. Application registration number. Where do I have it there? Application registration number 592 of 19. DCA approval, December 20th, 2019, for the St. Jude's Hospital project. For the architectural component of the project, and also for the structural component of the project. I can also report to you, Madam President, that the engineering, not the engineering, but the mechanical drawings, the plumbing and electrical drawings spoken so widely about, that we do not have those drawings and we're doing things in a piecemeal manner. These drawings have been obtained from the consultant and the designer, and those drawings, of course, will be priced and so on. Madam President.
I remind you.
Yes, Madam President. I was just saying so in order for us to determine that it needed to be priced as part of the loan component of the project. So, Madam President, these have been done, and this, of course, has become an integral part of the project, Madam President. And so, Madam President, the naysayers, Madam President, the detractors, those on the other side, are widening the gap to say now, you know, when they cannot attack the project and the project progress and the project cost and the project implementation, they are going to go now and attack the local contractors, the local people who are involved in the project, Madam President. But need I just say to them, Madam President, when they are shouting, let them go and just go back to the past and look at what it is that has transpired, Madam President. And I ask the question, Madam President, okay, between 2011 and 2016, under the failed attempt by the St. Lucia Labour Party to deliver St. Jude's Hospital, who was the preferred supplier of building materials? And what was that supplier's relationship to the St. Lucia Labour Party? And what position did that supplier hold in the government of the St. Lucia Labour Party, Madam President? I further ask, Madam President, the agricultural project, the Youth in Agricultural project, which senator under the UWP, under the Labour Party, received the contract for the supply of building materials for that project? So, Madam President, we need to be able to support our people. We need to be able to support the fact that our local contractors, our local engineers, our local people should be given the opportunity to establish themselves, empower them instead. Why should we be going all the time to foreign people to be able to do our business for us? If we can empower our local people, we can elevate our local people, we shall become self-sustaining, Madam President. And in that case, this St. Jude's Hospital project remains a particular example, an example where local talents, local people, local contractors, local developers are the ones developing these projects, and I will stand by them. I'm happy that this government of the St. Lucia UWP is supporting our local people, and we will continue to do so. So, Madam President, I support in totality this motion to go to the Exim Bank of Taiwan and to apply for a $20 million loan. I look forward to the completion of this hospital, Madam President. I look forward more so to both of our medical facilities, our primary medical facilities in St. Jude's and OKEU, be open to the people of this country, especially with all the looming threats of natural diseases and so on. I thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, it really saddens me to hear
Close for lunch.
I'm waiting for a light. Senator Ferdinand.
Thank you, Madam President. There was a delay there because for a moment I thought that we were taking a break. So I would like to make my presentation if that is in order.
Just 1 second. Senator, the clock is wrong. It's 1 o'clock. You're looking at the 12 o'clock clock, which is wrong. So we want to continue? Senator Ferdinand.
Thank you, Madam President. Greetings to all our fellow senators. Before I move to my contribution, I beg your leave to just extend my sincere condolences to 3 families very close to me in our community who lost loved ones and are mourning in this time, the Wilson, Jamari, and Harlow families in my community. Madam President, I've been here for a little over 3.5 years, part of this Honorable House, and many a times I've made the observation that we come to the House to debate a motion, a bill, a resolution, and there's a pattern of going back and forth about what should be done and so on. And I really looked forward to this resolution because it has very serious implications for our health sector, that there would have been an effort, particularly on the part of the leader of government business when she presented the motion this morning, to sought to justify the need to borrow not just a mere $20 million, as she referred to it, but more than 54 million EC dollars. And if we're going to borrow that sum of money, at the least you would expect is for the mover of the motion to attempt to provide proper justification to the House, and so we can understand why we need to do so. However, Madam President, what I have observed is that there is a, almost a narrative seems to be about who didn't do what and what did you do. It seems like a broken record. And I'm a little disappointed that, now that I'm making my presentation, that I don't even have much content from the mover of the motion to which I can speak. However, Madam President, I will continue to add my voice and hope that some of the suggestions that will come out of this presentation will be taken into consideration. Instead of us having politicians and senators coming to the House to attempt to justify a motion to borrow $20 million by describing a visit to the hospital site with their hands, how tall things were. And, I mean, that is not, in my opinion, Madam President, the way you go ahead to justify borrowing money that the taxpayers have to repay. You need to give, a more concrete, serious, and convincing reasons for that to happen. But I haven't seen that as yet. And I think the responsibility to do that is that of the government. It is that of the minister responsible for finance, the minister responsible for health, who happens to be a member of this honorable house, the minister for health, that is. So, Madam President, with all that money that we are here to borrow, and I repeat, it is not a mere 20 million US, it means that we have to be specific and clear about the justification. And so, I want to ask a couple of questions. A lot of the discussion so far has been about value for money and, which cost is more efficient. That is not my field, so I will not venture too much there. But I will ask, for example, after all of the spending and all of the figures that have been quoted, Madam President, in 2020, March of 2020, as we are here today, do we have a St. Jude hospital? The answer is we still do not have one. There is a lot of stuff that has been said about previous and present governments, but as we speak, St. Lucians do not have a hospital. We are still, we are still going back and forth, but the fact remains that to date we do not have a hospital. And this is what we need. And I'm hoping that all the projected days that are given and so on will result in us having a hospital for the people of St. Lucia as soon as possible. I think that is the essential issue. Madam President, I listened as my colleague this morning in a very brief presentation, that is the leader of government business, stated, and I may not be quoting her word for word, but words to the effect that we need this hospital more than now, or now more than ever, given the onset of the coronavirus. Now, it is not unusual, Madam President, that most of the debate that has taken place about this, on this motion, seem to have made reference to the coronavirus. At some point, you even thought that that was the issue being discussed. And it is no coincidence. The reason I believe this is happening, Madam President, is because at a time like this, perhaps we ought to have been coming to the House with a motion that was more specifically targeted to addressing this public health pandemic or public health threat. And it is no accident that this seems to be coming up in almost every presentation that is being made. So, Madam President, I am a little concerned about the priorities at this time. Now, I am not going to venture to say that we shouldn't build a hospital. Of course we should. But I believe if we had done what we were supposed to do from 2016, when it was clear that the hospital had to be completed and we had to move and it was promised, if we had engaged the engineers, the professionals that I am not one of, that I cannot speak of, we would not have been coming here in 2020, in March of 2020, to do what is happening now. And it's obvious that we're hearing about record time to complete hospitals within the 18 months. There is a mad rush to get it done. So I think that this is an opportunity for us to reflect on what we have not done and now what we ought to do to ensure that we are not back here next year doing the same thing. Madam President, the resources that we need now, and I will go back to the mover of the motion statement that with the coronavirus, so to speak, on our doorsteps, we need a hospital. The $20 million that we are here to borrow today, to try 20 million US, which is, we have to keep the figures, because when you hear a mere 20 million, it sounds as if it's nothing. Can we imagine what a figure like that could have done or can do at this time to help us to deal with something that is an emergency? And I believe that when we quote figures and we give those kinds of statements in the House, we must speak true to the situation. And when you hear a mere 20 million, it is $54 million. So it is a significant sum of money. That is almost the entire amount of revenue that we had to forego in VAT for a year. So it's a lot of money. So, Madam President, since the leader of government business put it in context that in light of the fact that we have this situation on our hands, we need to move on and complete the hospital. There are some other things that we need to consider that could have been done or should be done at this time. A bipartisan approach, perhaps, by the government and the opposition to decide on emergency decisions that have to be taken to mitigate against the threat that is at our doorsteps, for example. Activating school safety plans, the availability of water in schools. And I just heard very nicely that I'm very happy to hear that the minister did mention that hand sanitizers would be provided to schools very soon. I'm happy to hear that. This is the type of discussion that we should be having in this House. Any serious legislature around the world at this time, Madam President, would be coming to the House.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Yes, Madam President, I just want to, on a point of order, Madam President, because the Honorable Senator is saying that is the hand sanitizers going to come? But I stated here in my comments, on March 5th, sensitization sessions were held with the principals of schools across the island, primary schools, secondary schools, and they were given hand sanitizers. 205 gallons on March 3rd of hand sanitizers were handed over to the Ministry of Education for distribution to schools island-wide. So I just want to remind the Honorable Senator that that has already been done.
Very well. Madam President, I was actually...
Senator Ferdinand.
Beg your pardon. I was actually commending the Honorable Member for the single statement that I heard in our entire presentation that suggested that we were paying attention to an issue that is current and serious, rather than all the other things that have been said. So it's good to know that something has been done in that regard. But I'm just saying, it would have been a lot better coming to this House today, when you listen to what's going on in all the other legislations around the world, that in a serious legislature like ours, would have found it fit to come perhaps to move a motion to borrow a certain sum of money or to approve a certain budget, borrowing of a certain sum of money to do something that is going to address an emergency. Nothing wrong with continuing to build a hospital. But at this time, why is this the focus of the discussion? And that is why I said, Madam President, it is not unusual that while we are here discussing and debating borrowing of money to continue a hospital, every single parliamentarian seems to be in some way mentioning that coronavirus or COVID. So the point is, exactly, the point is, perhaps our focus, at least for the month or for this sitting, the very first sitting, should have been on this. Anyway.
Senator Ferdinand.
Yes.
We are debating the motion at hand. And the motion at hand is borrowing money for the reconstruction of the St. Jude Hospital. Let's get back to that.
Very well indeed, Madam President. I think the point has been made, and so I move on. So since we decided that this is a good time for us to come to the House to borrow the money, I believe, Madam President, that it is important for us to focus on justification. I have been sitting here, there have been 3 presentations. I was looking forward to the presenter of the motion, to have stated and given us concrete reasons and justification for that decision, so that the government side could have backed it up with justification, and if the opposition felt that they were not, then we could have said so. But at the moment, the only thing that I've been hearing is a long back and forth about when we give dates and who measured. Madam President, I think we are tired. We are tired, and I am personally very tired in this honorable House. Every single motion that we come to debate, instead of getting a good argument to show why we must do it, and the opposition has come to this House before, Madam President, unlike what we've been told, to support motions that have been presented in this honorable House. I remember at least 2 of them that we have supported. And it is because we saw justification and reasons being given why we should do it. But if we come here, and how can you come here to ask for the opposition to support a motion to borrow $54 million, when all you are saying to us is you didn't do so, and we can show that we can do it? That is not justification, Madam President. That is not, I cannot, even if I want to, on that basis, I cannot say that I'm standing here to support it. And I think all of us here realize that healthcare is a priority, and we need the hospital as soon as possible. But I think we have the argument wrong. We have approached this as if it is a war against who can do better than whom. And I think in this Senate, where we tend to believe that we keep a certain level of discourse, that it is time for us to go that way. And in that way, I would be able to provide rational reasons why I support or not support a motion. This is too important a motion, Madam President. We have had all kinds of unnecessary, banters and so on, which, in my view, has not given 1 inch of clarification or 1 inch of explanation on what we are here to do today. Pulling up a drawing from some previous audit that in itself is vague has not justified to me why we must borrow $20 billion. So I believe it is important as a parliament that a motion of such importance that I believe needs to be given proper treatment and sanity should be discussed with a different approach. I am sorry, Madam President, that I am not the mover, so I am not in a position to give all of the evidence that is there. But I believe the opposition is requesting that I hope in the presenter of the motion's rebuttal that there will be at least some proper treatment given to that. I really think it needs to be done, because if it's not done, I'm afraid, Madam President, when the vote will be called to support, I will not be able to. And it would be a sad decision for me to make, because we all agree that healthcare is a critical issue. So I believe that, to wrap up, Madam President, because I didn't intend to spend much time on this discussion, that instead of us hearing the same story that we have heard on all other matters, the theme that does not take us anywhere, that we should instead come to the House with those types of motions and bills and proposals, if we want to call them, and tell the House why, tell the people of St. Lucia why we are doing what we are doing, and gain the support of those who may not even like or who may not likely have agreed with you in the beginning, but with the evidence that you provide, there's reason that you can justify. Outside of that, Madam President, I will not be able to support a motion to borrow all this money on the basis that the government, on the evidence that the government has presented so far. I thank you, Madam President.
Senator Auger, I'm going to ask you for 2 minutes. I've asked for the other senators to return. Senators, I'm taking this opportunity now to reference what Senator Ferdinand just said in terms of the back and forth. This is happening, I think, because there is a, let's say, maybe incorrect use of misleading the House. In fact, if you look at the standing orders, in fact, I would be happy for somebody to point out to me the standing order that speaks to misleading the House. You will not see it there. Misleading the House is a grave accusation. It has various ingredients to it, and it suggests a very deliberate attempt by a member of the House or a member of the chamber to deliberately, with almost malice, misinform the House. Misleading the House is not to be used in a back and forth as was exhibited today. And I'm tired of it, and it lends to little discussion and a lot of back and forth. If you look further at section 33(5), that allows you to correct a misstatement or misrepresentation. And I believe that a number of what you call misleading the House is in fact a misstatement. You're accusing another of a misstatement. And the correct way to use 33(5) is to wait until the senator speaking has finished. Then you stand on a point of order, and you refer to 33(5) and correct the misstatement. But interrupting the senators or interrupting each other with misleading the House is not always misleading the House. Now, when you rise also on 36A or B, when you rise on 36A to be precise, that is not the point of order. You then have to refer to the point of order on which you are rising. So please desist from standing on 36A and saying, I stand on a point of order, and then you start saying somebody's misleading. You need to then refer to what point of order. And if you do that correctly, you will not be able to tell me that you're misleading the House because it's not in the rules. You will have to go to a standing order that is in the rules. That does not mean that I'm negating that there is something called misleading the House. That we can rely on because that is, it forms part of parliamentary practice as explained in Erskine May and used in other parliamentary places with parliaments like ours. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And I will get firmer about it as the day goes on. Senator Ogier.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, if I might inquire, did you wish to break for lunch? You referred to the time earlier. I can go after lunch if you wish.
Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I stand to ask for the suspension of this House for lunch, 1 hour. So we will resume at 2:30, Madam President.
Honorable Senators, the question is that we adjourn for lunch and that we return in 1 hour. And I'll put the question, as many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it, the ayes have it.
Thank you for staying with the broadcast. So, during the various senators, including Senator Honorable Mary Isaac, who is also the Minister for the Ministry of Health and Wellness. She provided an update on the coronavirus, which is now a pandemic. However, she indicated hope as it relates to finding a vaccine based on information coming out of the Johns Hopkins University. Additionally, some 66,000 individuals who were affected with the virus are recovering. St. Vincent and the Grenadines recorded its first case of the coronavirus. The Ministry of Health and Wellness have begun and continues sensitization campaigns as well as preparedness efforts. The department has also engaged both public and private sector entities to assist with these efforts. The equipment for testing arrived in St. Lucia for testing for COVID-19, that is, on the 10th of March 2020, and the reagents are expected to arrive here today, 12th March. Training will commence for the individuals in the lab on the March 16, and a full diagnostic testing capabilities are expected to be St. Lucia is expected to have the full testing capabilities by March 23rd. Additionally, we also heard from Minister in the Ministry of Creative Industries and Culture, who indicated that the ministry is in constant dialogue with health professionals as it relates to the mass crowd events such as the summer festivals, which are scheduled to take place with the St. Lucia Jazz around the corner, scheduled for May. Senator Honorable Herman Francis also provided a statement where he indicated he and member for Castries South, Honorable Ernest Hilaire, Dr. Ernest Hilaire, attended a cybersecurity brief where it revealed that St. Lucia does not have a standing committee for cybersecurity, and he recommended that one should be established. He also encouraged the youth to seek employment in the ICT sector as it is up and coming, and there are a lot of opportunities there, indicating that the government is keen on investing in the youth. Also, as it relates to the coronavirus, the Senator, who is also the Minister for National Security, Justice and Home Affairs, indicated that they were looking to establish an isolation area for the Bodily Correctional Facility if the coronavirus reaches our shores and somebody at the facility is infected, so that proper measures can be taken. Thank you so much again for staying with the broadcast. Join us at 2:30 for the afternoon session.